In the book, Jeff, you talk about the response of the black community, and I would like either of you to talk a little bit more about how the black community turned out. I know in the book you talk about how Bobby Rush went to talk to Jesse Jackson, and Jesse was a little reserved at first about it because the Panthers had been a little bit at odds with Southern Christian Leadership Conference, but congressmen, judges, lawyers, organizations from near and far came out and really turned the tide on this city. The black community had been very loyal to the Democratic Party, for mostly worse probably, but it was probably what had to happen at different times. But everything changed after that. Do you either want to talk about that?
Well, I just want to quickly say, and Jeff points it out in the book, but it backfired on him big time because it brought people there was the whole Jesse Jackson thing. All of those minor rifts became insignificant. This was an event of such major proportion. I mean, it was such a blatant lies. And the entire community, black, white, rich, poor, people who were conscious, came together and said, the words I wanted to say I can't probably say on the air, but said, oh no, we're not taking this mess.
I think you said it very well. The black community was divided over the Panthers. They had a lot of supporters, and there were some opponents. But were not divided over the murder of a young black leader in his bed at 4:30 in the morning. And it was clearly a murder and assassination. And the community came together, and the political leaders, as you said, who had been very beholden to the mayor, showed a great deal of independence for the first time. And that independence lasted beyond just the defeat of Hanrahan and played a very large role in eventually electing Harold Washington as Chicago's first black mayor.
No, I think it did. I think that really galvanized the black community. Now, going back to the book a little bit, you talk about William O'Neill, who was I think head of security at the time. He was head of security, yep. And he turned out to be an agent of the government. Jeff, why don't you tell us about O'Neill and what happened? In the book you describe how William O'Neill really begged Fred's parents to let him be one of the pallbearers at the funeral, and probably giving himself more cover. Whatever happened to O'Neill?
Well, O'Neill was, in many ways, sort of the perfect informant. I think he was sort of a schizophrenic. He could live in both worlds. When we took his deposition, he said, I admired Fred Hampton. I had a great deal of respect for him. And yet O'Neill, first of all, he was in the party. He was an informant. One of the things he did is he built an electric chair to put in the front hall to scare potential informants from joining the party. He was also a provocateur. Mm-hmm. He would urge people to do illegal acts. He was attempting to build, he said, a rocket that would go from the Panther office to City Hall until Fred told him to dismantle it. O'Neill provided the floor plan of the apartment that showed where Fred Hampton would be sleeping and where, in fact, he was killed to the FBI. And he was no dumb guy. He was a streetwise guy, and he knew that shortly after that floor plan was provided, the raid took place, and Fred was killed in the very bed that he had demarcated on the floor plan. Nevertheless, as you said, after the raid, O'Neill went to Fred's parents and said, "Can I be a pallbearer in the funeral?" And at first I thought, sort of like you did, maybe this is a perfect cover. But O'Neill had the ability to think on both sides of an issue. And I think ultimately it cost him his life. He committed suicide about 8 years ago. He ran in front of a car on the Eisenhower Expressway. So I think that both-sidedness caught up with him in his life.
Yeah.
Michael McCarty, what do you remember about O'Neill? I mean, I'll just share with you, I remember talking to O'Neill when I was involved in another case with a PLO, People's Law Office lawyer, Dennis Cunningham. I spent a lot of time at 26 in California, and O'Neill was there for something, and I remember having a chat with him and talking it up. What do you remember, Mike?
Well, one of the things, along with what Jeff was just saying, that I remember is O'Neill's urging people to do stupid stuff, and trying to set people up as part of the COINTELPRO concept, urging people to do things that would not only get them busted, but therefore would discredit the party. And one of the things I too remember about him, which is only one of those hindsight things, is that one of the important parts about being a part of the party was that you had to attend the political education classes. There was a list of books that you had to read, and O'Neill was not into that. He was one of those. He was one of those people, and you often see that in organizations. There's that gung-ho person who was just a little too gung-ho, and their purpose is to get people to do extreme activities, to extreme actions. So I remember when he stepped off in front of a vehicle. I was hoping it was a truck on the Eisenhower Expressway, as I recall. And I too remember this interview that was done in the early 80s. Maybe the Daily News was still around, but there was an interview with O'Neill after the fact. He'd been sequestered off someplace, but he was, again, talking about how he really admired Fred, the same man who poisoned him and set him up to be killed. So, yeah, he had some screws loose.
One of the things that sort of stuck out for me in reading your book, Jeffrey, is we all used to say you can, and Fred used to say you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. And while we all tried to remain strong, and when I say all, it's not only the members of the Panthers, the Young Lords, Rising Up Angry, SDS, all of us who kind of looked to the Panthers for leadership and looked to Fred, that was the beginning of the end, not only of the party in Illinois, but kind of the demise of that kind of level of revolutionary struggle that we had ascended to.
Yeah, I think that you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution, which we and Fred said, because we wanted it to be true, is not so clear. Leadership is really important. Mm-hmm. Examples are important. And as you said, and I think everybody admits, after Fred was killed, the Panthers Party in Illinois declined substantially in terms of its impact, its membership, and so forth. So I think the government understands that people like Dr. King and Malcolm X and Fred Hampton are important to the survival of a movement. It doesn't mean that everything about them dies, and in fact we are the legacy of that. But also, it's hard to imagine there are other revolutions. Ho Chi Minh was pretty critical to the Vietnamese success, and Mao to the Chinese success, and Fidel and Che to the Cuban success. Who knows what might have happened? And we look at other countries where there were assassinations and liberation struggles were defeated. So I think it's an ongoing question. It's not as simple as we would have liked it to believe it. That's my opinion. I don't know how you feel, Michael.
Yeah, well, the thing is that one of Fred's great skills was bringing people. I still get together with members of the party here and out in L.A., and we are a very diverse group. Just some people couldn't exist in the same room, but Fred was able to. We put all those things aside, and we came together because he had that power to bring people together in a common cause with a focus. And those people are rare.